practice what I call ecstatic orgasm. So mostly in our Western culture, we only learn orgasm through the sacral sexual chakra, but we can orgasm through all of our chakras. Think about getting like flutters in your heart or like even goosebumps, right?
I'm aware of this concept, yeah, tantric, you know.
So learning how to move it up the body,
yeah.
Right? And from that, I have a video. I'll give you a card where you can go and check it out. When I move it through the heart chakra, it makes my pulse jump like 40 points, like automatically. And I kind of measure it on an iWatch or Apple Watch, and kind of show you it jump, because there's no way, you can't really see it. You can't see me doing it, right? So how do I prove to people that something's going on? That's like just learning how to radiate energy and move it out of the body so that we are deflecting a lot of the impact that's, out there, right? So instead of always taking it in and absorbing it, with that density and especially pulling up on the root chakra, always sucking it in, we're learning how to radiate our own energy outward. And so we're influencing more than we're being impacted, right? And also that it's helpful, like I notice when I'm getting massage and there's a really tense area, right? Then I just radiate and I move the tension from the inside out, right? So it's really interesting what we can learn to do, once we can manage our breath and get it correct, then we can learn to harness our energy. And then we can do superpower things with our energy, right?
Yeah.
But we first need to learn how to get on that horse, right? And learn how to manage it. So that's what we're gonna do. Today we're gonna learn about the pelvic floor and pelvic floor breathing. So I'm trying to go over as much as I can in an hour. I do have some videos that will have additional information you can check into if you're interested. So when we're born, we breathe as babies, infants, mostly into the chest, right? Mostly through our mouth. The first breath, I think, is like screaming, right? And so that's the first third of the body. And then we may learn belly breathing. That starts to move and mobilize the diaphragm. I call the diaphragm like the hymen of the breath. We're gonna break it in. I learned belly breathing having panic attacks in high school. I had a counselor teach it to me because I was just having really shallow breaths in my chest. So just learning how to breathe through my nose and pull it a little more deeply into my body just so I could get it into my lungs. So it is helpful at some points, but we really want to learn how to move it fully all the way down into the pelvic floor. Pelvic floor is a second diaphragm, and we want it to move in the same direction as the diaphragm in our ribs. So as that diaphragm moves down, the pelvic floor should move down as well. Because as this diaphragm moves down, it pushes into the organs. We want the organs to push into the pelvic floor, spread and tone the pelvic floor. As we exhale, we lift and engage the pelvic floor, and it's zipping up through the body as we compress the air out. Also compressing the organs in and up into the body so that we can squeeze them. Inhale and let them fill up and flourish with blood and oxygen. Exhale, pump everything out. So inhaling and dropping, and exhaling and lifting. So this is the full body breath that we want to get into. I call it pelvic floor breathing because that's where it goes, that moves into, right? That's the base. We really want to think about it as we inhale, even breathing and moving the energy out through the hands, the fingers and the toes, right? Those will start to spread as you notice your body start to adjust to this breath. Let me show you what it looks like. So the pelvic floor is located in the pelvic area and within the hip bones. Is attached between the sit bones and the pubic bone and the coccyx or the tailbone. And it's attached all through this lining, lining the bone here.
The red?
Mm-hmm.
There? Okay.
And it's kind of like a woven network of muscle, and it's got openings for urethral passage, anal, vaginal, something like that. There's a lot just kind of woven together to create this basket. And it's holding our organs in, right? And we want this to be healthy and mobile. When it's too tight, it gets kind of clung to the bone, and it can't really, there's no agility or suppleness to the muscle, so it can't really pump. When that happens, it can clamp down on passageways and block flow of fluids, energy, sensation, right? Everything gets kind of dampened and tight. And we don't want it too loose and everything falls out, but also if everything gets too tight, organs might find their way out. This is where we get into like hernias, prolapse and stuff like that. So these are the things we want to avoid, right? And so that's what it looks like in the body. And our pelvic bone, our hip bones are a lot like our shoulder girdle. So the base of our body and the top of our body, it houses the broad band of the spine, right? Those two connection points. We want to keep, when we start to get too tight around here, it's kind of clamping down on those nerves again. That's where the nerves spread out into the base of the body. So if we're closing off our connection, we get a little bit dissociated here. We may come into, for women, menstrual issues, sexual dysfunction. Can cause a lot of back pain. Can even cause stomach issues, sending all that tension up into the belly and the digestive tract. So that's what it looks like. I'm going to show you what the breath looks like in my body. And I wanted to kind of start out, I was like, I got a little bit of talking to do in the beginning of these classes, so let's kind of roll this blanket up and we're going to massage around the area of the pelvic floor on the exterior. Let me just unfold the blanket once. I'm going to create a roll, like a massage roll. And you can use rollers at home. The only thing with the pelvic floor area is very sensitive, so I like something like with a little more give to it. So I suggest like a towel or a blanket rolled up. So let's start with, we're just gonna sit on it. So if you feel where your sits bones are, just kind of let your sits bone kind of hang over the roll towards the back.
Is the sit bone the two pointy pieces?
Yeah, the two pointy bones. Sits bones hanging off the back of it in between the thigh, where the thigh attaches to the glutes. And then placing the hands behind us. You can place a roll, if your legs okay straight, or would you like a bend in them? Put a roll underneath your knees. That's helpful here. Okay, take the tension out of everywhere else so we can focus. Four. And then just kind of like moving back and forth. Let that roll kind of roll over the bones towards the back. Moving towards the thighs again. Just moving slowly. If you find an area of tension, just kind of sit on it. Maybe breathe into the sensation. Give the sensation a color. Let the breath move into that space. Spread. Moving around, like mine close to the tailbone here for a moment. Alright, so just finding areas, if you want to move side to side, give it a little wiggle, just kind of noticing the muscles around there. And I'm going to show you the breath here. Okay. I'm going to do a belly breath, a typical belly breath, show you what it looks like in the body compared to the pelvic floor breath. So belly breath, it's forward. And exhale. Notice my chest. Okay, I'm going to do a pelvic floor breath. Notice on the pelvic floor breath, my belly doesn't move outward, it moves actually in and up almost, right? It's lengthening. Like to compare it to like a flower, how a flower grows, right? It roots down through the bottom and blossoms upward and kind of stems through the center to siphon all of the nutrients and fluids, right? So what we're gonna do is siphoning the breath through the belly. And then exhale, by lifting, gather, you compress.
So it's much different than the diaphragm.
Yeah, it's a bit different. Yeah. The exhale is what we also might call a Kegel. So a lot of times people are taught Kegels and we just kind of do them, and even on the inhale. So it's really important not, to be aware that we're using that to move the air out of the body. The inhale and then lengthening, letting it go. Exhale, lifting up. I'm gonna show you from the side, the belly breath. pelvic floor breath. So you can see the difference and how the belly moves. It gives you kind of a visual idea of how it should be moving through the body. So when we breathe, air is pretty much, there's always air pressure around us. You can kind of move to the side, kind of go, you can move onto a glute if you like. It's kind of pressing that butt cheek in towards the center of the seam. Kind of rocking side to side, loosening up the muscle here. Forget what I was saying. Air pressure. So when we take in breath, we're not really like forcing it into the body through the nose. Where it's the muscles relaxing and allowing that air to move into the body. So creating that vacuum space for the air to move in. So when you think about lengthening the pelvic floor, moving and creating that vacuum space for the diaphragm to move down and the lungs to blossom through the chest, right? And then exhale, just closing up that space and moving the air out of the body. Inhaling, just opening to the breath, receiving the breath. So forcing it in, and exhales, ushering it in and up and out. Moving out all of the areas that cleanse. We move to the other side.
You know, I'm gonna make a confession. I first watched your videos like 2 years ago, and I was like, wow, she knows a lot, but what the fuck is she talking about? And then like I started learning about it, and now it's like I finally know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just like this year recently, last like week or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like it's crazy how you like get so much better, you know?
I think that's what life is more about, becoming curious about our evolution and our growth rather than trying to,
I don't know,
force
like,
ourselves to move faster. It happens when it needs to happen, and you notice later on the things you learn are important for where you're going.
Glad it finally happened. I'm a little older, but I'm glad it finally happened.
So you can come off of the roll for a moment. Just kind of rock the body side to side, using the weight of the body to kind of grip the muscles around those sits bones. Start to loosen them up. You can rock the toes back and forth. Feel that connection at the back of the thighs, glutes. So I'm going to show you the balloon thing real quick. Interesting. So when it comes to breath capacity, when we're breathing into the belly, how much air are we getting in compared to pelvic floor breathing? This is kind of surprising, so I'm going to show it to you. I'm first going to do a chest breath, which pretty much I get to fill up my lungs, right? But I'm not moving the base of the body, which is just going to show you. So when it comes to the pelvic floor breathing, I want to show you how much I get into my lungs. So I'm going to do mouth. Chest breath. Belly breath. So the first belly breath I'm going to do, I'm going to lift and engage that pelvic floor, just so that I can see how much air got into the body. And then I'll do another one where I just kind of do belly to spine compression, and I don't engage the pelvic floor like most people cue, just drop it, and just to show you how much air I leave in the body compared to how much I take in. So first I'm going to do belly breath with pelvic floor. So that's how much air we get in. Unless we have that reservoir from the old air. And I'm going to do a pelvic floor breath first. It's going to be pretty similar to the chest breath a little bit more.
Right. And that third one was pelvic floor.
Pelvic floor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is belly breath, engaging the pelvic floor and exhale. Now I'm going to do a typical belly breath to show you the difference. This is belly breath with belly to spine compression. So here's the difference of the air I'm leaving in the body, right? And then I'm decreasing my next inhale by that same amount, right? Because that space is already taken up. And this is the difference between a pelvic floor breath and a typical belly breath. So if you're going to all those breathwork classes and they're teaching you different kind of cool choreography with the breath, that's great. But what is the structure, right? Because the choreography, that's our feminine, but we need the masculine, that structure to be correct. The foundation's nothing, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So there you go. That's pretty interesting, correct? So what we want to do with the body, instead of breathing like a balloon, let's say, body belly button, ribs, forgive my each of these classes is going to be a little different. Just gotta go with whatever. All right, so pretend these are the lungs inside the ribs. Now, like I said, we're only taking in so much breath. So everything that I'm moving in the body as I'm doing belly breath is just displacing mass, right? So in order for me to move that belly forward, actually, as a balloon sense, I have to kind of squeeze down or more taper the top and bottom edges. So as I'm breathing into a belly breath and I'm widening the center of my body, my diaphragm's moving this way, so it's harder to move it down. And also it's kind of tapering, my shoulders are kind of moving upward in order for this to be the widest part, right? And it's also pulling up here. So I'm actually tapering these two ends, constricting and creating more tension in the throat chakra, heart chakra, base root chakra, right? So instead of that, I want to think about, instead of breathing into the body like a balloon, I want to breathe into the body like an hourglass, right? Lengthening through that center so I can blow up the base and the top, right? 360 degrees in the chest and in the hips, and kind of siphoning, cinching that waist. Do you know about the bandhas in the body? So the bandhas in our body, bandha means lock. So these energetic locks we can create with the body. So in the throat, like right when we close off, even when you did that kind of, you engage those muscles. When we do Ujjayi breath, do you know about Ujjayi breath? Constricting the back of the throat. We do that in order to regulate the breath a little bit better. When we're mouth breathing, that's a large intake valve, so it's hard to regulate the breath. Then we start breathing through the nose, so we can constrict the esophagus a bit, so that we can manage the breath a little bit better, regulate it in, and also move heat out of the body more easily. It's that Darth Vader breath. You may hear them sometimes in yoga class. It sounds like this. This helps us regulate so I can draw it deeper into the body.
Okay.
And so what I'm doing with this is Jaladhara Bandha, our throat lock, or throat, around our throat chakra. We have Uddiyana Bandha around the diaphragm at the base of the sternum, and kind of through the belly, where it can kind of create that, if somebody were to punch you in the stomach, that kind of, that. And then root lock, where we kind of, that Kegel, where we can close off the base of the body. So these are through entry points where we can start to manage the pace and the pressure of our breath and how our fluids pump through our body. So it's kind of managing the environment inside. And so when we're doing the inhale, that's why we're kind of engaging that Uddiyana Bandha in that contraction, just slightly, as if I were doing the Ujjayi breath. So I'm slightly engaging these two just to regulate the breath down the body. This bandha is remaining open. On the exhale, this one lifts and gathers and moves everything out. A lot to think about, but we'll go into feeling it into the body. So now we're going to take this roll. And so between the hip bones, where our pelvic floor is, we have kind of an arc upward. So it doesn't sit flat on the floor. So we're just going to use the roll to move the surface of the floor up towards our pelvic floor.
Okay.
So we can breathe into it. So I don't want it too big to where it's just pushing into my pelvic floor and I can't breathe into it, but I don't want it too small where I can't breathe into it. So just finding that. Side to side. We can place blocks on your knees. You can always cross your knees or sit on a chair. I like having my legs out, so.
Okay. Yeah, I can't really sit Indian cross legs. Yeah. Very tight hips.
Okay. Alright. So how's that roll feel? Is it squishing you?
Yeah.
Is it too tight?
No.
Think you're alright? Okay.
I think it's good. Yeah.
Alright. So pelvic floor breath. First, let's take a hand to the chest. And then a hand at the base of the ribs. And start to draw the breath, feeling the points. You can close the eyes. Feel the points between the hands. Just feel the breath move between those 2 points, chest spreading. And when I think about our body's movement, it's almost like a kite. Like how a kite catches wind. It has that vertical structure, also that upper horizontal. And with our collarbone moving and spreading through the shoulders and the hips as we lengthen through the spine. Exhale, lift and gather, moving the air up and out. So you inhale and breathe into that roll. Imagine the pelvic floor like a hand, kind of spreading over that roll. And as you exhale, it's starting to grip and lift that roll. See if you can pick it up. You won't be able to, but just use those muscles as if you could. Inhale, spread the palm of the pelvic floor. Exhale,
So the exhale is almost like a Kegel then?
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And we're not going to walk around probably squeezing it that tight, but when we're exercising and retraining the body, we want to kind of, start to get that muscle memory overwritten, right?
Okay.
And start to move the one from the chest down to around the pubic bone, just the base of the belly. And so now when you're in a class and you hear them say, take a deep breath into your belly, just think, take a deep breath into my deep belly, the deepest part of my belly. Inhale, breathing between the 2 points of the hand, spreading the palm of that pelvic floor over the roll. Exhale, lift and gather, move that roll up towards the belly, the ribs. Inhale, releasing that hammock of the pelvic floor to cradle the organs, rebounding up the spine through the back of the neck, spreading through the chest. Exhale, lift and gather. Also created this little thing kind of showing the flower idea. Oh no, that's not gonna work. Then inhale, everything spreads and roots down, blossoms up. Exhale, pulls in, right? Inhale, everything spreads outward. So you can think of breathing, like when they say spherical breathing, they think about that like circle. So instead of breathing from here, breathing out entirely as if you're getting that whole radius, right? So you're having to lengthen and also spread through the chest, right?
Okay.
It's kind of like a cross, but higher up, so more like a crucifix kind of.
Yeah.
So inhale and breathing. You can think about blowing up a balloon between the hip bones. As you breathe in, watch that balloon expand between the hip bones. The hip bones move away from each other. Exhale, use the muscles of the pelvic floor to deflate that balloon. Also for men, I also say breathe into your balls on the inhale. As you exhale, lift your balls. Zip up through the body. Inhale, open and release. Exhale, lift and gather. Is that helping you kind of feel where the muscles are in the body?
The roll?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So this is something like if you're at home and you're not feeling it, you can roll up, like a hand towel or a t-shirt or a pair of socks. Just kind of put it there.
To know that you're
Breathe into
kind of
it.
gripping, right, on the...
Yeah, and
exhale.
spreading. You want to feel that spreading because most of us are too tight in the pelvic floor, so kind of want to focus more on the release than over contracting. But sometimes contracting helps us know what release feels like, right? So kind of play with your body, but the idea is more starting to get that space open so that we can start to pump better, right?
Okay.
Pump that energy. Our pelvic floor muscles, those are the muscles of the penis, right? So that is your support muscle. So you want to be fine-tuned and intimate with these muscles and understand how they work and be able to move them and manage them.
So on the inhale, the flower blooming analogy you made both at the crown and up higher.
Rooting.
What is a trick that you could help to bloom at the bottom? Because
So you can think about rooting, the roots moving down, but also I have this one where you can imagine the breath as a seed in the ground below you. And as you inhale, the ground starts to open and the tree starts to grow up through the body. The breath starts to move up from the base of the body and moving through the trunk, branching out through the chest and the head. Exhale, lifting and gathering nutrients from the earth, dispersing the breath through the body. Inhale, opening that base to receive the light of the breath through the ground. Feeling it rise up through the chest, up the spine. Exhale, lift and gather. Inhale, feel the light of the breath trace from the tailbone up to the back of the neck, branching through the arms, shoulder blades, ribs. Also think about the fingers of the lungs spreading as you inhale. We'll move into a couple exercises to kind of help correct your body. And these are ones you can do also at home just to kind of help you feel what it should feel like in the body.
okay.
We'll start with this one. And then we'll move back to the floor because we've been on the floor a little bit. There's a lot of times in class we do, goddess squat, right? And they'll have most teachers will have us inhale up and exhale down, right?
Okay.
And if we're doing the backwards breathing, right, lifting up on the pelvic floor as I inhale and dropping it down on the exhale, it makes kind of sense with the movements, right?
Right.
But if I'm doing that, then I'm always kind of setting myself up for that kind of prolapse hernia situation where I'm just dumping down as I'm widening, right? Kind of making that slack in the base rather than, and if I'm breathing into it, then I'm spreading and I'm creating support, right? But if I'm just kind of exhaling and pushing everything down by moving the belly back and kind of dumping it all downward, that's kind of setting me up for that. And if I'm using correct breathing, pelvic floor breathing, inhaling and spreading and exhaling, lifting up, then I want the movement to match with that, to kind of support that movement. So I want to inhale as I'm spreading the legs. Here I'm opening that space, creating that, and exhale, lift and gather, create that structure, create that A-frame through the body. Inhale, spreading and opening. Exhale, lift and gather, like you're putting on a wetsuit, like you're zipping up through the front of the body, knit, ribs kind of knit in. Inhale, lengthening through the belly, both ends of the spine and through the chest. Exhale, everything comes to center. Inhale, opening, spreading into the base, rooting down through the ground, through the toes. Exhale, lift and gather. I also do ballet, and we do a lot of pliés, right, for our jumps. We want to use our knees to bend and also catch us. We're not breaking our knees. And so it makes sense. A lot of ballet teachers don't really cue breath either, but it makes sense to fill up with breath, right? Like I'm a rocket fueling up, then use that to propel me off of the ground, rather than trying to sniff myself up into the air, like making myself heavy by depleting my body and contracting in, and then trying to sniff myself upwards. I can do it would be more like, right, I can have that extra rebound while I'm in the air, right, and pull that breath into, but to get up there, I want to use that breath. So using the mechanics of my body to support my natural organic flow, right? And so if I wanted to create resistance, let's say I got a really weak pelvic floor, then maybe I could do that backwards and start to create that resistance. But that, in this kind of area, it's really setting us up for injury, right? It's very delicate, so I don't want to be pulling on my legs especially when they're in a fixed position and kind of pulling against that soft tissue. So if I wanted to do that, I may stay in this pose, and we can come down into that because it helps us feel it a little bit more. So again, inhale and spread in the pelvic floor, and just gonna stay down as you lift up and pull up and zip up through the front of the body. Inhale, open. Exhale, lift and gather. And I like moving my hands with it just so everything's moving in the same direction. My brain doesn't get confused. Exhale, lift and gather. Inhale, open. Exhale, lift and gather. So you're gonna feel the muscles moving a little bit better there. Maybe you don't yet, because if we're really tight in this area, and it took me like a week to start to feel my pelvic floor moving. For me, it was very like when I did a manual inspection, it was very what I call petrified. It felt like bone in there. So it took a while to get that kind of.
I'm finding that when I'm trying to flower bloom, instead of the belly expanding, it's more like my lower abdomen. Do you think that's a good sign or a good way I'm bringing the air?
You feel like it's moving more into your lower abdomen?
Yeah, my lower abdomen is ballooning out.
Okay.
Like how my belly would in the diaphragm. So it's like the diaphragmatic breathing is happening a little lower.
I mean, that's a step, right?
Okay.
We want to get it to where I feel like feel my low belly. I'm gonna do belly breath. I'm gonna do pelvic floor breath. So maybe it's just that there's a little tightness there and it's getting a little harder to move down. But as long as you're getting there, maybe that'll start to kind of open that up. But the thought is, don't get stuck in wanting to push that forward, right?
Yeah, because it seemed like yours was going in and contracting.
Yeah, it's kind of pushing down and actually kind of lengthens. As if you can imagine, if you could, like sometimes I tell people to keep that pelvic floor relaxed. Imagine you had a tail, like moving up and kind of rebounding back up the spine and kind of waving. But for guys also, and women, you can think about it extending through the genitals, like the breath moving all the way down through the genitals.
Okay.
Right, so that kind of idea, maybe that kind of rebound, but it has to move down and lengthen in order to create that arc.
Okay.
And so this one's nice to do in the morning or before an exercise, just to remind the body what it feels like. And I always find myself during the day kind of checking my breath and my breathing backwards and like, oh no, what's it supposed to feel like? And how am I supposed to do this? So I kind of go back to this goddess squat, but just modified it. So say I'm at the grocery store and I don't want to like do this in line, right? I just like drop my knees, right? Bend my knees, inhale, I go down, exhale, come up. Inhale, down and open, exhale, lift and gather up. Right, just kind of do that kind of bend to remind my body what it feels like, just to reinstate this, reinforce this correct breath.
Sorry for the weird imagery, but on the inhale and the blooming out on the root, is it almost like you're pushing a poop?
Yeah, you want your anus, the buttocks to kind of flare out. So it is kind of that sensation, right?
Okay.
Not too hard, like don't strain it, but yeah, that sensation of letting that go, right? And start to strengthen, you know, for a lot of women as we get older, creating that tightness, that's what creates the incontinence, you know, tinkle when you giggle and all that, just pee when you sneeze, you know, it becomes very common for women in their 30s. And it's just a tight pelvic floor, right? They just think, oh no, this is the end. It's like, no, we can fix this. But it takes that kind of, you know, suppleness of the muscle in order to.
A full range of contraction and expansion.
Just like using a hand, right? So
Right.
The bond is we want to have that control over all of our bond is.
Okay. And should I be positioning my pelvis like more forward or like arched? Is there a preference to that or?
What I like to think of is have the tailbone pointing down to the center of the earth. Imagine that your pelvic floor could open up and you could shine a light. You want to shine a light downward, right? Not forward and not back. But shine the flashlight downward. And you may notice, because for me, for belly breathing, that kind of made my pelvis, I have a kind of the Buddha belly that I gotta get rid of, and that kind of pelvic tilt that I'm working on, right? Because I had the belly breath for so long, it kind of pushed me into that, but it needs to be more. We'll come down. How many So this is another easy one, just kind of feel into. This is just doing kind of cat-cow in different directions. And we're gonna start with cat-cow on the back, and this is helpful if you're tight in that sacral area. We can use the weight of the body to help massage that as we're working. So that's nice, but it also just kind of takes the sensation and the tension out of the arms and legs so we can really focus on the pelvic floor. And just be kind of the idea of like wagging the tail, but it'll look like this. As I inhale, my back arches, my hips fill up with that breath. Imagine blowing up that balloon at the base of the body and kind of floating forward. And exhale, lift and gather. As I start to curl the tailbone, I'm not gonna move up into a bridge. I'm just gonna let the back go flat on the floor. Tailbone might lift up an inch or so from the floor, but I'm not looking to engage my legs. Inhale, breath moves down into the pelvic floor. Exhale, lift and gather. So this is kind of pelvic tilt. You can come down. You can place the hands on the pelvic bones to feel them move forward and back. Inhaling, blowing up that balloon in the hips. Exhale, lift and gather, deflating that balloon, moving the air up through the body. Inhale, hips rock forward. Exhale. So really kind of pop your booty into the floor. Let's exaggerate it. Lengthen through the belly. Exhale. Nice. Really curl it up to the ceiling. There you go. Inhale, release. Lengthen through the belly. Spread through the chest. Exhale. Hitting the ribs. Zipping up from the base. Very nice. Inhale, release. There you go. Exhale. Your next inhale, imagine you're gonna get punched in the stomach. There you go. And then start to engage the shoulders. Inhale and roll the hips forward. As you exhale, you can curl up into a crunch slightly. Feeling that front engage, top engage with the base. Inhale, release off the booty. There you go. And now, inhale, blow up the hips as they rock forward. Exhale, tailbone curl, start to push into the feet, lifting up into the bridge. You might bring your feet a little closer to your booty. Yeah. You can push into it. Inhale. Inhale, lift out. Next one. Exhale, curling your tailbone. Now lift it all the way up, zip through the front of the body. Inhale, release the chest. Sequentially, back laminates back down to the floor. Exhale, curling the tailbone, feeling the back off the floor. So here's how we should be moving into bridge pose on an exhale, creating that support for the low back. Inhale, open, release, down. The inhale would be if we moved into a full wheel and open chest there. Exhale. Tucking the tailbone, lifting and zipping to the front of the body. Very nice. Inhale, rolling out. So there's another one we can just start to get that muscle memory of the body retrained.
This is a hard pose to get into.
What would you call that? Is that kind of deer pose almost?
Kind of deer, but like, it's hard for me to do.
Deer.
Gear with assistance.
So you can relax the movement when you're ready. A little bit more time. I'm going to show you one more thing that might kind of help you start to integrate these systems. We're gonna do an inhale and retain the breath. And on the retention, I want you to relax the shoulders and try to move that belly back and let the breath drop heavy into the hips. And then on the exhale, we're gonna exhale it all out, and then we're gonna suspend and hold the breath out. But then we're also gonna kind of engage, like use the muscles as if I were taking an inhale. I'll show you what it looks like. Inhale, retain, let it all drop, hips spread, shoulders spread. Exhale, hold the breath out. Suction, and draw that diaphragm down. So you start to kind of engage those deeper abdominal muscles, so you can feel that connection there and have them assist in that kind of movement, that descending.
Okay.
You can actually, can you sit there?
Yes.
Me too. Inhale, imagine spreading the palm of that pelvic floor, spreading through the chest. Hold the breath in, let the breath settle. Let it spread through the hips, widen the chest, and the shoulders. Exhale, move the breath all the way out. Lifting that pelvic floor, zipping up through the body. Leave it out. Widen the diaphragm. Move side to side. Try to connect to that pelvic floor and then take an inhale. You ready? It's intense, huh?
I have no connect. Like, when you're saying like, okay, widen this, I don't have any mind body connection with that.
We'll work into it. That's good to know. You know, to see where we're playing with. That's good to know. Okay. No worries. Let's move into just a pelvic floor stretch, relax. We're gonna come on to our back. I'll place my feet on the ground, place this bolster on the shins. I'm just gonna rock back onto the back, have the bolster on the shins, maybe rock the knees side to side. Twist the bolster side to side, moving the knees right, left. And just take a moment here, breathing into that pelvic floor, blowing up that balloon as if you're blowing bubble gum out of your butt. Exhale, pull that bubble into the body. Inhale, expanding beyond the base of the body. Imagine a second pair of legs lying on the floor. Exhale, lift and gather. Inhale, blowing up that bubble gum. On the exhale, maybe the scent of the bubble gum enters the body. Move the air in and up. Inhale, release and spread. And exhale, lift and gather. I'm gonna rock the knees over to the right side of the body. You can take the bolster and weigh down the legs and place it across the thigh and the calf. Let the arms move out to the side. You can cactus the arms if you like. We're just gonna wag the tail here. So inhale, kind of a cat-cow. Inhale into the cow, tailbone moves back, pop in the booty. Exhale, curl it in towards the belly and ribs. Inhale, just slowly wagging the tail and the breath. Relax the toes, relax the knees. Relax your jaw and your heart. And let that wagging slow down. Just take a moment, close your eyes. Surrender into the pose. Wiggle toes and fingers. Soften your lips, soften your brow. Take a few releases through the mouth with some ahs. Inhale through the nose. More like that. Use that pelvic floor to move the sound out on this last one. Inhale into the ground, into the toes. Move the prop. We'll bring the knees back in towards the chest. Roll over to the other side. Place the prop on the thigh and the calf of the upper leg. The arms spread. Relax the belly. Let the hips be heavy, flooded with sensation. Breath. Soften the soles of your feet. Sense light in the palm of your hand. And that's like cat-cow and the twist. Inhaling down to the tailbone. Breath drips off of the tail. Exhale, lift and gather, dispersing the breath through the body. Energizing the cells. Inhale, open, flood the body with breath down to the toes. Exhale, lift and gather, contracting inward. Inhale, open, arching. Exhale, tucking. Contracting. Let the wag soften. Eyes rest behind your eyelids. Follow sensation from the eye sockets through the optical nerves into the brain. Breath and attention saturating gray matter of the brain. Breath lubricating the exterior between the skull. Sensation dripping, flowing between the curves and folds of the surface of the brain. Liquid breath streaming through the furrows and the grooves. Sensation flowing from the inner ear canals, dripping through the outer architecture of the ear, falling from the earlobes. We'll take 3 ahs here. Inhale through the nose. Last one. Shifting the prop off to the side. Let your legs extend in front of you. Take a big stretch through the arms, down through the toes. Spread through the lungs and the fingers and the hips. Exhale, relax into the floor. Maybe bringing new awareness to the breath and its path, traveling down the length of the spine, lighting up each vertebra, down to the base of the body. Connecting the system, integrating the brain. When you're ready, bend your knees, place your feet on the ground, rock your knees side to side. And moving
right or left side. Just take a moment to breathe into the toes, into the fingers. Exhale, the breath moves out and the body softens. And push yourself up to seated. We're in our class here, so we're going to take a moment to thank you for practicing, connecting your body and your breath, releasing tension. Every time we release tension from our bodies, we're releasing a measure of tension from the entire world, making it a lighter, brighter space. Om Shanti.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was difficult. I feel like I need to start off with the ballet or this
Yeah,
exercise first.
it gets easier, but yeah, it takes some time. Usually those first few weeks, I tell people, have you ever driven a standard car, learn standard?
Right.
There's a kind of threshold of frustration where you're always stalling out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. You get over it.
Yeah.
And it becomes like riding a bike. You know, it becomes very natural, but it could be challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of videos on there that'll give you more info.
It really will change your life, man. It will.
The work.
Like always.
Doing the flow tomorrow. I'm gonna be cueing.
I missed the sound bath.
Cueing a public floor reading. Sound bath Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm so good for Ashley the rest of the month.
Oh, hell
I
yeah.
think she's picking up my last Tuesday. I gotta dance.
Oh, you're still dancing? Ballet?
I do ballet. I'm not taking any this semester. I do tap and modern, and I'm also in a West African drum and dance group. West African dance and drums. How you doing?
I went to a somatic breathwork event last night. So beautiful.
Yeah.
Just getting all kinds of breakthroughs lately.
That's good.
Like, I'm not like, life's good, you know, everybody was screaming and shit. Like, I've already been doing it for like a year and a half, so it's like, I don't need to scream no more.
It's one way of going.